Welcome back to my channel, all you knowledge seekers. Today I have a hack attack for you, and we're going to be discussing how to accelerate WGU. Because I listened to your guys' comments and I saw that you wanted to know about it. So today I do have a couple of tricks, tips to help you guys accelerate through WGU if you have decided to go there and be a student. I also discuss a lot of the pros and the cons of WGU based on my own school experience. So you can check that video out like up here or up here. I don't know, left or right, whatever way that goes when I edit this later. I'm going to give you a couple. These are in no particular order, so please feel free to stick around to the end because they're just kind of like... Okay, so let's start. The first tip that I'm going to give you guys is the absolute easiest thing that you can do. Schedule a call with your course instructor once you have started that course. And I mean, as soon as you go and you press like register or enroll, whatever that little button is that allows you to actually be in the course, schedule a meeting with that instructor. In this meeting that you have, they're gonna usually they just give you all this information, but sometimes you have to ask them. But usually they're gonna be like, okay, so here's what you do. You're just starting the course, you know, do X, Y, Z, whatever. If they don't just give you this information, just ask them like, hey, I'm just starting this course. I just wanted to know what are some tips and tricks that you would recommend so that I can get through this course quicker. And then they'll tell you what you need to focus on so that you can kind of pass it as easily as possible. Now, I will say, again, there are some drawbacks to accelerating, but that really depends on where you're at in your career, your academic career, a lot of different things. And I'll discuss that a little bit later. But right now, just schedule that call, let your instructor know you're just starting, and see what information they can give you. Next, you are going to want to, after that call, you're going to want to schedule some time to actually do the things that the instructor tells you to do, because it could be reading certain chapters in the resource that you're provided for the class. It could be watching certain videos, whatever it is that they tell you to do. You're going to need to carve out some time for it. And if you really want to accelerate quickly, you're going to want to carve out like a large block of time, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to do everything in one go, essentially. Most of the beginning courses you can do fairly quickly if you just carve out enough time for it, because you're literally just like taking all that information in for your short-term memory and then applying it to a test. So normally, like I said, for most of the beginning courses, you can literally, if you just carve out enough time, you can knock it out in a very short span. I know a lot of people have kids, they've got other obligations, you've got work, you've got all sorts of things going on. So it might not be super realistic for you to be able to carve out like a large block of time to just get through a class. But if you can just carve out as much as you can to accelerate. Again, for actual digestive purposes, I would definitely recommend kind of taking these in little chunks, more or less, so that it transitions into long-term memory more so, rather than just staying in your short-term memory. That's how you build long-term memory, by doing things over time. But accelerating is a different situation. So like I said, depending on where you're at, this could be good for you. But if you want to really develop that long-term memory, you're going to want to take things in smaller chunks. Accelerate big chunks, long-term memory, shorter chunks. Now, once you've gotten into the course, you're kind of like in there. If you've gotten to the point where you're at the coding courses, most of the courses in the beginning, you're not going to code very much stuff. You're going to learn about coding, and you're going to learn general schematics and things like that about coding, but you're not going to actually do very much coding until you get to the end. Now, again, there are a couple of things with this, but we'll address those later. Once you get to these coding courses, you're going to be tempted. You're a coder, you know, you're a programmer, your mind thinks this way. So you're going to be tempted to go on Google and Google, you know, the class and see what other people have done. You're going to try and see their projects and things like that. Do not do this. It is the worst thing that you can do, because number one, it's going to mess you up. Like if you haven't already learned coding and you're going to essentially copy somebody else's code, you're going to mess yourself up, because you can't copy the whole thing. They're very strict about the amount of borrowed stuff that you can put into your submissions. So to make it work for you based on your skill set, and taking somebody's code kind of out of context, to manipulate it to the way that you need it to be manipulated so that it doesn't look like it's totally copied is going to take up even more time than if you had just written the code yourself. So do not by any means go and try and look at other people's code when you're starting your projects. If you run into a problem with your project as you're going, it's more than okay to go and check something else out and see like how they did something if you're trying to figure out for yourself like, oh, this just isn't working for me, I need to redo this code, but I'm just stuck, you know. So it's easy to go and look at something then, and it makes sense to go look at something then. But do not, under any circumstances, just go and like try and grab a bunch of people's code bits and put it together so that it's like some weird amalgamation of people who've already passed the course. It's not going to work out for you. It's going to cause you so much extra time and headache and whatever. Just don't do it. Additionally, sometimes you'll be tempted to use some of your own code that you've used for a class previously without really making it fit the course because you haven't really delved into it just yet. Don't do that either. Always just redo your code. Just start from scratch, build it up the way you know that you should be building it in your mind, like design it the way that you want it to be designed with the structure that makes sense for you and for what the course is. And just try not to use the one thing that you built before and make it into the code that you're trying to make now. Did that make sense? I don't know if that made sense. Let me know if that made sense for you. But don't get other people's code. Another good acceleration tip: always utilize the learning resources. Again, they could be a textbook, they could be a video course, they could be, I don't know, whatever they might assign you for this class. Always use it, because if it's a test, they're taking the questions directly from that textbook or that learning resource. And if it's not, if it's more of like a programming thing, more than likely they want you to build in the way that that resource is telling you to build. So always read the resources. Even you don't have to read the whole thing. Like I said, your course instructor might tell you specific chapters to really pay attention to, or like specific things, but it will help you in this particular situation to know exactly how they want something done. Otherwise, you're gonna have to retake a test because you didn't, know that they wanted you to do it this specific way, and like if it's a multiple choice, the choices on there were only like that specific way and like some other random ways or whatever. So you want to make sure that you know what it is that they are looking for. In the grand scheme of life, is this super, is it kind of limiting? Yes, but this is school and you're just trying to accelerate through school on your own later. If you want to broaden your knowledge, or if you want to ask your instructors about different ways to do stuff, they will gladly tell you. But because this is a instructional, like learning institution, they're going to be very specific. They're going to be very specific in the way that they want you to do certain things sometimes. And if you don't do it that way, it will get returned to you or you'll fail your test. So you just want to make sure that you look at the things that you're supposed to look at in those resources and learn them that way for this environment. Again, get out in the real world, do the things that you want to do the way you want to do them. It's like leaving home, No, Mom, I do not want to go to bed at 8 o'clock anymore. I am an adult. I will go to bed at 4. It's fine. Okay, so now that you have a general idea of stuff that you can do to set yourself up for success when you first enroll in a course, the next step is to join like groups, like join like-minded people. On Facebook, there are a ton of WGU specific groups. One of them is an acceleration group, which I joined like immediately when I got to the school. It was the most beneficial thing I think I had ever done, mostly because I'm a highly competitive person, and when I saw other people like accelerating pretty quickly, I was like, no, I must win. So it'll definitely drive your competitive nature if you are competitive. And then also you can ask all these different people how they passed a course, how they did well in this course, or what trouble that they ran into, and all sorts of different questions. If you have any questions and you're really looking for peer input, an acceleration group on Facebook will really help you out there, because people always want to share knowledge. So join the group. Okay, now that we've talked about your course instructors a little bit, I have also talked to you guys briefly about course mentors. And one of the things that you want to do with your course mentor is be clear in your communication with them, because course mentors, they will schedule, we briefly talked about this before, but they'll schedule time limits for you to complete certain tasks. So you want to be extremely clear in your communication, because it can feel a little, I don't want to say overwhelming, but pressured. You can start to feel really pressured if you have certain deadlines to meet, and your brain just is like, I don't really like this is my brain. My brain does not like deadlines like that. It feels like too much pressure, even though I work really well under pressure, but I hate actually having a deadline in my mind. It's weird like that. So if that happens for you, just be super clear in your communication with your course mentor, so that they are not constantly like asking you when you think you'll be done with a course, because for whatever reason, some course instructors ask that a lot. So you just want to be extremely clear in your communication, so that your mind and your body is free of external pressure to the best extent that you can give it to be free of external pressure. Obviously, the world still goes on. We still have other stuff that we deal with in life, but in this environment, at least, you want to minimize that pressure. So just be clear in your communication. Also, let your mentor know, like, if you're having any sort of problems, or which class you want to do next. If you have like a preference, they don't always tell you which class you have to take next. If you have a preference and you see on the list like, oh, I really want to take that class, let them know you want to take that class, so that you can take that class next, assuming there are no prerequisites or something like that. Also, they have knowledge. So as I've said in another video, your program mentor is usually somebody who has worked in your field that you're trying to get into for many, many, many years. So they have just great amounts of knowledge, and they want to share it with you. So if you have any questions, if like I said, if you pick a course and you think, oh, maybe I'll have some trouble with this or whatever, a lot of them have also been at WGU for a while. So they'll tell you what they know about the course, and if they happen to have taught the course before, because some of them like bounce around from being program mentors to course instructors to whatever. So you can let them know, like, hey, I want to take that one next, and do you know anything about it? And they'll tell you if they do. And even if you don't ask, usually they'll be like, oh, you can take this one next, and then they might just offer up that information. But if not, again, just ask. Always ask questions. This is one thing that I will say is super useful just in life in general, because people don't ask questions and then they don't get to know stuff, or they don't get to do stuff. So always ask for what you want, and they will tell you all the information that they have. All right, so here is the most important thing that you really can do if you have the opportunity to. So if you're starting from zero, like I started, more than likely you're not going to do all of your paperwork to get into WGU and then like immediately get in. It usually doesn't work like that. There's usually some weeks worth of wait, because you have to get your transcripts sent over. You have to like do all these things. Maybe you applied, on the 4th of the month, and you always have to start on the 1st of the month. That's when your term will start, no matter what. So that being the case, you'll usually have about a month, roughly, unless you decide to, start farther out. So whatever, you might have even more time. During this time, utilize this time. This is golden time for you to get ahead of the game. Make sure that you, number one, know if you're doing software development or computer engineering or something like that, make sure you know which track you want to be on. Once you've decided that, and again, if you have no prior knowledge, learn some knowledge. Go on YouTube and figure out like the basics of the language that you're trying to learn. There are tons of like code learning websites that are free to a certain point. There's like Code Monkey it's like for kids. It'll teach you the basics of coding. There are, I don't know, there are just so many, like JetBrains will teach you a lot about Java, and like it'll help you build little projects and stuff while you're learning. So take this time to go and pre-game your education, because WGU's payment schedule is based upon the term, and because you can accelerate, you can get done in one term if you really put your mind to it. And or if, like I said, if you're already knowledgeable in this, you can just go there and do all the things in one term, and you can keep your educational costs extremely low. So take that time before you start school, like I said, which is probably going to be about, at least a couple weeks maybe, while your transcripts are getting sent over, while your FAFSA is getting approved, or like whatever you're doing. If you're just waiting for that 1st of the month to happen, Go to all these different other websites, learn how to code a little bit. You'll be able to pass at least like 3 or 4 classes initially because you'll know these basic things. There are some I had a history class. I had like a history of technology class, or like the internet or something. It was like some sort of history class, but I don't remember if that's because I needed a history class or whatever. But regardless, if you learn some stuff about coding and things, you will pass so many classes so quickly in the very beginning, and that will really just help your motivation and keep you going and feeling like you're making a lot of progress. All right, I know I said to not look at other people's code before, and more or less I'm still saying that, but I'm not telling you to not go on the web. I actually encourage you to go on the web and look stuff up. Like I said before, with learning just coding in general before you start, you should do that. You should also figure out what it is that people who program do on the internet. And so a lot of us are using like Stack Overflow, we're using a lot of different helping websites. So learn those websites and how they work and how you can use them to your advantage, because you're going to get to a point in your academic career, in your real career, where you're going to have to utilize these websites, and the best way to do that is to start early. So utilize the internet to look these things up. Utilize Reddit. I use Reddit a lot. When I got to different courses that I wanted to know certain things about before I got in, like before I really got into them, once I enrolled, I just wanted to know more about them and what other people have done. So Reddit was a super huge help for me. Like I said, the Accelerating Facebook group was a super huge help for me. The regular WGU Facebook group and the tech one, like I joined a lot of WGU groups, but utilize the internet to your advantage. Just don't try and steal people's projects. Another one of the super incredibly important things that you're going to want to do, and sorry, I just remember this. There's this ad on YouTube that pops up like all the time, and it's this little woman, and she's talking about the greatest, what does she say? Oh, she says the greatest enemy of writing is not being creative, it's being interrupted. And so I always think about that whenever I think of stuff like this, but it really is with anything. So eliminate all the distractions that you can. And I get it. Some people have kids. They've got other things going on. You can't eliminate your kids. But eliminate the distractions that you can, because you're going to need some very focused like attention to get these things done. And when you're trying to learn stuff and digest it in a very quick manner, you can't really be stopping every 5 seconds to do it. So this is why I initially said take out large chunks of time as best you can, because so your brain will understand that flow of information. Try as best as you can to get into a flow state. And to do that, you're going to need to eliminate or really greatly minimize the amount of distractions that you have. So try and do that. I know that that's really difficult to do because, again, life, phone calls, you just work, whatever, there's a lot of stuff, but maybe pick a time in the day where you know that nobody's really going to bother you. If it's from midnight to like 3 or 4 in the morning, if that's the time that you can get, then that's really the time that's going to help you. And maybe you got to just suck it up for a little while, because the quicker you get it done, then you won't have to do it again. So just eliminate the distractions that you can. Try and pick a chunk of time where you can really plow through these things, and you'll get it done so quickly. Like, I swear, it'll go by so fast. Now, I do want to caution everybody, because I think I might have mentioned this previously a little bit. Acceleration is amazing in terms of, like I said, keeping your educational costs down, but you want to make long-term progress as well. So try as best as you can to continually utilize the knowledge that you're getting. Accelerate as fast as you want to, but constantly keep those skills fresh and like make them relevant to your life, so that even though you kind of burn through them, they really do get ingrained in your psyche, essentially. So that's all I'm going to leave you guys with. Hopefully that was informative and, I don't know, interesting for you. If it was, give this video a like, subscribe, and tell me what else you want to see, because I don't know. It's easier when you guys tell me what you want to see, because otherwise I am just kind of weird and I will just talk about whatever I find interesting. And I find a lot of things interesting. So, bye.